For landing, of course, we're going to set the seats up. Fuel selector back to both, mixture rich. We're going to put the prop all the way back in. Strobe and landing lights on so that people can see us even during the day. Autopilot's off. Go ahead and set up our approach speed with flaps up. And then flaps, I usually use 10 degrees on downwind, 10 to 20 on base, and 30 to 40 on final. There is a maximum airspeed for flaps. You want to be under 100 indicated for full flaps. Indicated airspeed with flaps on final should be 60 to 70. And I won't talk about short soft field landings, bulk landings. If you have flaps retracted, go ahead and take the 40 and 30% off, but leave the 20 on. You'll get a too high of a sink rate if you try to take off all of those flaps at once. And so then we won't take any more of the flaps out until we get going about 70. And of course the cowl flaps are back open. Of course, as we're coming in, we've got our airspeed where it should be. We're watching our attitude out our window as we're coming down on approach, and then we'll go ahead and set up our round out and our flare and touch down. After we land, we'll go ahead and pull the flaps up. The cowl flaps should be open. Put the transponder to standby. And then we'll shut the aircraft down, master switch off, electrical equipment off, throttle to idle, and then we use the mixture control to shut the engine down. So we pull the mixture, which is the red handle, all the way back. That's idle cutoff, and then the engine will stop on its own. Then we'll turn, after the engine stops, we'll go ahead and turn the ignition switch off, the rotating beacon, the master switch, and we'll put the control lock back in, make sure the vents are closed. We'll tie down the aircraft, and if we filed a flight plan, which everybody should do if they're going on even a short cost country, we'll go ahead and get a hold of the local flight service and get that flight plan closed. So that's pretty much it. Typical pre-flight and information for getting the aircraft safely in the air and safely back down. It is technical, but just want to show you that it's a lot easier in Second Life to go fly than it is in real life. A lot to know and a lot to learn, but doable, because what one man can do, another one can do. So if you haven't thought about flying in real life, it is expensive, but if you're renting an airplane, not so expensive. You can get your light sport license for under $2,000, and typically it's a bit between I would say $60 to $100 an hour plus the instructor, which that ranges from $35 to $65. But they do have package deals. It's a good idea to get your ground school out of the way first. Get the written done, and then go do your flying, because it is possible to do, and I've seen people do it in 2 weeks, get all their flying in and ready for the practical flight and oral flight tests. So any questions on real life preparation for flight?
I got a question for you, Bankos.
Okay.
You said you have to check the fuel for water, correct?
Yeah, you have to make sure that there's no water in the fuel, yes.
With seaplanes, such as, like planes designed to land on water, is that a bigger hazard for them since they're around water a lot more?
Well,
or the systems
probably
a lot
more because of the temperature changes overnight. Water will condense out. The best thing you can do in your airplane is to keep the fuel tank full. go ahead and fuel up after you've taken your flight, whether it be a seaplane or land-based aircraft. Go ahead and fuel those tanks up so that it doesn't leave room for a lot of condensation to occur on the inside of the fuel tanks. But yeah, it's more possible where you have a larger temperature change overnight. But we just do that as a matter of course because you just don't want to have an engine problem, and it can be serious if you've got a lot of water in there. Any other questions? Now, some aircraft are not as difficult as the 182 because, you know, we've got the constant speed propeller to deal with. This instrument panel you see up here is actually a RG version, which is a retractable gear version. You can see the gear handle over on the right. This 182 here is a fixed gear, so we wouldn't have that on the instrument panel. But I don't want to discourage you from doing pre-flight. I think pre-flight is important even in second life. With my aircraft, you're going to want to go ahead. There's no checks to do other than making sure that you are ready for flight. Your avatar should have all of its scripts off, your little flight feathers, any scripted objects that you have, because the more scripting that you have on you, the more difficult it's going to be to cross regions. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're not wearing anything scripted on ourselves. All those radars and everything, detectors, everything that you have on is going to make your sim crossing that much more difficult. And we all know how hard that can be anyway. And at times it's a real discouragement, especially when you get popped out of your airplane. But here we want to make sure that we res the airplane when we're going to go ahead and sit. If we're using the auto attached version like this one, you know, I'll jump in this one now. I've got to find the part of the aircraft that's actually the base, and I usually make the base the prop, the wheels, the ailerons, or the rudder. The rest of it, just a facade. It's just there to give us the appearance of a working aircraft. So I'll click, and on mine it says get in. On others it'll say pilot, fly. It could be any number of things. Mine in this case says get in. So I'm inside the aircraft now, and in second life. Since this is an auto-attached version, I'm waiting for a drop-down. I want to go ahead and get my drop-down that says attached to your avatar, and I'm going to say yes. Okay. And the reason I want to do that is because the attachment scripts are in sync with the fuselage scripts, or the base scripts. And so if you don't have them in sync, then when you start the engine, then you're going to be behind it. I usually go ahead and type C to get my dynamic camera working. I don't know how people fly with wanting to just stare at the tail all the time. I want to see the aircraft in a dynamic form if I'm not flying in mouse look. I tend to fly in mouse look because I like to be able to look outside the aircraft and get the same view that I would if I was actually flying. So I tend to fly in mouse look a lot. I do have some instruments on this